Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Mrinmoy Pramanik. I teach Comparative Indian Language and Literature at the University of Calcutta. Now we will discuss Asian drama forms from Japan, and we specifically will discuss about No and Kabuki theatre. Almost all the countries, even all the languages, have their own theatrical performances, rituals and traditions. Many of them are found quite diverse and highly developed in their forms. Undoubtedly, rituals and religious activity gave birth to many distinctive forms and patterns of performances, which again developed into many separate theatrical forms and continued to be performed independently. Similarly, Japan had numerous ritualistic and theatrical performances in the ancient period, orally transmitted from generation to generations. But very few survived, since there had been no system of writing till 4th century. Thus, the early history of Japanese theatre has always been missed. But with the advancement of time, the medieval period witnessed a profound change in writing and music, dance and song. They became the regular features of Japanese festivals. In a period of 200 years after Prince Shotoku 573 to 621 imported Buddhism, Japan embraced continental cultures, especially from China, Korea and India. By the 8th century, three forms evolved in Japan: Jigaku, Bugaku and Sarugaku. Bugaku and Sarugaku exerted considerably influence on the early development of No theatre in 14th century. While No theatre started gaining its popularity after being patronized by royal courts and being performed widely, one more oppressed form of theatre, Kabuki, evolved around 1603 and gradually became one of the most famous theatre forms in Japan. No and Kabuki are the most popular and widely performed Japanese forms even today. It is believed that No has derived mostly from an old Japanese dance from Sarugaku No, a ritualistic dance form mixed with music, dance, mimicry, etc. Sarugaku means monkey music. An early treatise, New Notes on Sarugaku, 1060th century, states that the Sarugaku was an inclusive term for all kind of comic entertainment. Thus, it basically was a form of noisy merrymaking. The Buddhists adopted Sarugaku No as a form of demonstration of their practice and teaching at the beginning of 12th century. Initially, it was performed by the priest, but as time progressed, the form got the attraction of the mass, and many performance were being organized in many occasions other than temple festivals, and so it created the need for skilled performers, and slowly professionals grew and replaced the priest. It was under the leadership of Kannami Kiyotsugu 1333 to 1384 and his son Ziami Motokiyo 1363 to 1444 that No evolved into a unique form of Japanese theatre in 1374. Kannami Kiyotsugu came to perform at the court of the Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimitsu in 1358 to 1408. At that time, Kannami was a major performer of Sarugaku No and was the head of his troupe. Ashikaga Yoshimitsu was highly impressed by his performance, and he offered Kannami and his troupe royal patronage and allowed them to live in his court. Sarugoku became more refined as it transformed into a country performance. Kannami's greatest innovation or the contribution was the combination of popular mimetic drama with an elegant aristocratic style. After the death of Kannami, his son Ziami continued refining the practice and transformed the social perception of formerly outcast actors. Today, Ziami is considered as one of the greatest no dramatists and theorists of all time. He wrote more than 100 plays and a series of highly sophisticated treatises on the art of acting and playwright. Over the time, Sarugaku no came to be called merely no or noho. As a result of it, noho can be called as a form of performance of 14th or 15th century with a proper structural shape of its own. Now, let us talk about form and structure of no theatre. And in this part, we will discuss about themes, texts, subjects and types of performance. No dramas are now classified by their themes into 5 different categories. Those are kamimono. The first one is kamimono. These types of plays are about praising and worshipping God. A character comes in the role of a deity to tell the mythic story of a shrine or praise a particular god. Second is shuramono. Shuramono are about warriors. A spirit or ghost of a famous warrior appears and acts as the protagonist and pleads to a monk for salvation, and the drama culminates in a glorious reenactment of the scene of his death. The third one is kazuramono. Kazuramono are about women, mainly filled with refined songs and dances. Kazuramono reflects the smooth and flowing movements representing female characters. The next one is karuimono. Apart from above 4 types, these are some miscellaneous play which comes under the term karuimono. They are often about mad persons or spirits, but also about some living persons. There are about 94 miscellaneous plays traditionally performed in the 4th place in a 5-play program. And the next one is kirinamono. This type of play demonstrates the stories of monsters, goblins or demons and other supernatural beings. There are almost 30 plays in this category, most of which are shorter than the plays in the other categories. A traditional no performance includes one of each type in above shown order. But over the due course of time, the number of plays is reduced to 2 or 3 in a no program. Every episode is drawn out to great length to exact the full flavor of the ritualistic. Another distinctive form of performance which came in between 2 no plays in a performance is kyogen. It basically a small verse performed as an interlude between the acts of no plays. None of the kyogen plays were written until 1638 to 1642, but there are nearly 203 kyogen plays remaining with us today. Now let us talk about the stage of the no theatre. The early no stage was more likely an open air arena theatre. A stage was built at one side of a closed circular courtyard to prevent the view of common people. The stage faced to the view of the royal family. A single rooftop was created on the main performance area. But as the no stage evolved, it began to be modeled on the architecture of Shino shrines. The standardization of no stage started around 1615, and since then no stage underwent through its drastic changes, and we see a fixed structure of modern no stage today. No stage was no more a part of royal court. Instead, separate stages were being created only for the performance. Gradually it took the shape of an auditorium, and an entire rooftop was created over the performance area and the audience area. The no stage we see today has 2 major areas: the main stage or butai and the breeze or hashigakari. which leads to the dressing room, and both the roofs of the stage and the bridge were like the shrines. Another structural significance of the stage is its pillars. The 4 different pillars which supported the roof were the upstage right pillar called Shite Bashira or principal characters pillar. The upstage left pillar called Fue Bashira or the flute pillar. The downstage right pillar called Metsu Keba Shira, the pillar for saying the speech. And the pillar at downstage left corner is called Wakibashira. The last pillar is used mostly for secondary character. The audience sits in front of the stage and also on the right side of the stage, just beside the bridge. Now you can see a photo of the stage with all the details right on the screen, and you can find the detailed study of the stage here. Now let us discuss about the costume, mask and properties of this theatrical practice. Although costumes are highly bright and rich in color and design, the costumes of No are mainly based on the official Japanese dress. They were mostly made of silk with grandeur design embroidery. The costume can separately be observed in different parts. The outer part, the garment worn without and overdress, lower dress and the headgears. With this basic combination, No theatre bring variation of the costume of different characters. Costumes are often changed on stage. Mask played a very prominent role in No theatre, like ancient Greek or Roman theatre or some folk theatres of other continents like Chou dance of Purulia, Seraikella and Mayurbhanj in India, the Kathakali dance of Kerala. Just like Chou dance, mask making has been transmitted from generation to generation by a particular community or family. No masks are usually made of wood. There are 5 different types of No mask: aged, male, female, deities and monster. Moreover, many other masks are also there for any further special or subordinate characters. Since No is basically a dance and songs based performance, it has very minimal use of properties. Be it had properties of stage properties, but the most important properties are the traditional Japanese hand fan. It is suggestively for many a situation like a rolling and flowing of water, blowing of the wind or storm or thunder, lightning or rain. The actors can also sometimes have a shod. In No theatre there is no possibility of changing scenery or having a backdrop. Thus, a very few small and simple stage properties are used to suggest any scene or place such as mountain, palace, bedroom, jungle, etc. Usually a wooden or bamboo frame suggests a boat. Now, let us till now we talked about the No theatre with all the details of stage, dress, its subject, theme and different categories. And now let us talk about the origin and development of Kabuki theatre. Let us begin with a note on Kabuki theatre that I quote that while No was assuming its role as a major aristocratic art form, other entertainments were being addressed to more plebeian audiences. But major popular forms did not emerge until the era of the Tokugawa family shogunate 1603 to 1867. As with No, the new forms can best be understood within the socio-political context of the time. Though most of the Tokugawa era, Japan was at peace. As a result, the samurai declined in importance while the lesser ranks improved their economic position. Beginning in the early 17th century, the shoguns also expelled all foreigners and deliberately isolated Japan from outside influence. The resulting emphasis on native social and artistic forms encouraged the elaboration of ceremonials and entertainments of all kinds just when the leisure classes permitted them to patronize the arts. This conjunction of events helps to explain why during the course of the 17th century there evolved two of Japanese most distinctive theatrical types, the doll theater and Kabuki. I unquote. This description is actually from the History of the Theatre, Oscar G. Brockett. Now, with the return of peace, the towns prospered and a vigorous new culture across nearly the opposite of samurai elegance and control. Vulgar, irrelevant and lewd culture of the merchants burst forth around 1600 in poetry, music and dance. At the center of their new entertainments were the first Kabuki performers. Thus, Kabuki is traced back to 1603 when Okani, a female dancer, began to perform on an improvised stage on the riverbed at Kyoto. She danced and enacted satirically playlets and bawdy side song. Most of the performers were women and they seemed to be associated with prostitution. They sometimes dressed like men and acted erotic. Around 1629, when Kabuki started spreading rapidly in major cities in Japan, the shogun forbade the women to perform and since their sensuous dances and skits often reversed gender roles and mocked samurai culture. The performance was subsequently picked up by young male prostitutes and started performing with the same pace and probably with more popularity. But around 1652, the young male prostitutes were also prohibited to perform Kabuki, for boys seemed to be as seductive as the women. Henceforth, only the older males who shaved their foreheads were allowed to perform Kabuki, and gradually men's Kabuki became and remained the permanent form. This rule imposed on the performance resulted providing male actors less sexually appealing to the audience. In addition to these impositions of the state, Kabuki had to go through many rules like limiting the number of Kabuki troupes allowed to perform, minimizing Kabuki's contamination of their culture, separating normal theatre people from normal urban life, prohibiting the performances that appeared to undermine the social and political hegemony of the samurai and many other. But even after all the oppression, Kabuki theatre developed rapidly between 1675 to 1750 and also evolved many of its characteristics and remains the most popular theatrical form of Japan till today. Now, let us talk about the text, theme, style and type of performances of Kabuki theatre. Kabuki is actually a combination of singing, dancing and speech. Since no script of Kabuki plays were written in that period, the form largely dealt with improvised dance and speeches. It was around 1664 when Kabuki came up with its first two acts. During 1670s, a writer named Chikamatsu Mozaemon began to write for the Kabuki groups. He wrote nearly 25 plays, but most of his plays are now changed from its original form. After Chikamatsu came Takedo Zimo, 1691 to 1756, who worked with Chikamatsu and became a successful independent writer later. Chushingaru, originally a doll play, is now considered to be his best Kabuki play. After Izumo and Kawatake Mokumi, 1816 to 1893, became the most prominent playwright. Some of his best plays are Gorozu, the Dandy, 1864, Beten Kozo and his Gang of Thieves, 1862. Kawatake wrote approximately 50 plays. Unlike No, Kabuki plays are often comic in theme in the form of melodrama. The episodes are not always linear and not well connected to each other. Initially, a Kabuki program used to be lengthy, nearly 12 hours. It was mandatory to have 4 different kinds of plays in a row. Zindaimono, a historical play, used to come at the very beginning of a program. Zindaimono often glorifies the tradition and values of the samurai. Then comes a dance with strong emotional flavor. After that, one act domestic play termed as seimono used to be performed. It was mainly about the traders, merchants, artists or ordinary people. And finally comes a one act play as a conclusion to the program. Slowly the time of the performance was reduced to 8 hours. Dance has always been an integral part of Kabuki performance. One has to understand the stylized movement, gesture and posture in order to understand the entire program. Dance sometimes reflects the verbal text and it's accompanied by narrative and descriptive music. The actor or the dancer does not sing. Instead, the orchestra sings along with a number of instruments like flutes, drums, bells, gongs, cymbals. But the most important instrument of all is the samisen, a string instrument. There was a time when the dance became so important a part to Kabuki, the company started recruiting professional dance choreographers. In Kabuki, the chorus does not stay in a single place throughout the performance. They change their position according to the scene and thus go beyond just becoming chorus. Since the time women were banned to perform, men started to perform all the characters of Kabuki. According to Oscar G. Brockett, the roles in Kabuki are divided into a few basic types like Tachiyaku, loyal, good and courageous men, Katakiyaku or villainous men, Wakasukata or young men who if mild in disposition are called Nimaime, Dokekata, a comic role including comic villains, Koyaku or children's role and Onnagata, women's roles of various kinds. Now let us concentrate on the stage design of Kabuki theatre. Unlike No, the Kabuki stage is more grandeur in its scenic beauty and stage dimension. If offered some kind of setting which resembles to the European proscenium stage, it uses all the modern technique including revolving stage, changing backdrops, curtains to conceal the stage, elevated trap door and many more. The area of Kabuki stage is wider than any other stage in Japan at that time, sometime around 1730s. Hanamichi, one of the most distinctive features, was introduced to Kabuki stage. It is walkway which extends into the audience and via which dramatic entrances and exits are made. Sooner, around 1770, a second Hanamichi was added for its popularity in providing special entrance. Initially, the audience used to sit in between two Hanamichi, but later on large balconies were made on both front sides of the stage. Kabuki stages and theatres have steadily become more technologically sophisticated, and innovations including revolving stages and trap doors were introduced during the 8th century. The revolving stage, called as Mawari Buta, was introduced in between 1716 to 1735. Seri refers to the stage traps that have been commonly employed in Kabuki since the middle of the 18th century, and you can find a picture right on the screen and you can find all the details there. Today, the proscenium arc introduced in 1908 in Kabuki theatre is 90 feet wide and 20 feet high. A typical Kabuki stages uses a lot of scenery. No three-dimensional paintings were used. The Kabuki stage provide the realistic setting of Japan. For that, realistic sets were erected on the stage. By 1830, Kabuki stage developed most of its technique that we see today. Now you can watch the picture with all the details of the stage. Now costumes, makeup and properties. Costumes in Kabuki performance are highly traditional. They often take references from various historical periods. Even though Kabuki hardly cares about history and its authenticity, it deals several historical dresses in a single play. The dresses are more grandeur in style and pattern than any other forms. Those dresses are usually heavier and needed assistance to keep them in properly on the stage. Where mask is of high relevance and mandatory for no theatre, Kabuki deliberately avoids the tradition. Instead, they paint on their face and exaggerated patterns are used to suggest different characters. In most of cases, the bright colors are used symbolically to give conventional pattern to each character. Generally, red and black colors are used in facial painting in conventional Kabuki theatre, but the characters in villainous roles generally come in blue or brown paint. Any Kabuki performance deals with great many properties and creates illusion and effect relatively in more realistic way. A hand fan is used in the same way as used in no theatre. A Kabuki play uses properties like puppets like tiger, elephant, monkey, etc. Sword, armor, a scarf used in various purposes, gods and goddesses, etc. But the most important property that Kabuki introduced is the wooden horse covered with velvet. It is handled by multiple actors. Now let us summarize the whole discussion. In this module, we came to know about most significant theatre form of Japan, which are No and Kabuki. And from through this study of these two theatrical forms of Japan, we came to know the evolution of different evolution of cultural and ritualistic practices of Japan from medieval period to the period of samurai. We have selected No and Kabuki for this module as you can understand that these two are theatrical forms which are placed in opposite direction, in opposite angles. Because No is patronized by the royal courts, it was appreciated by the elite class of Japan, and Kabuki was simultaneously oppressed by the royal court and the elitist practice and attitude. Whereas No represented elite class and royal culture through its practice, Kabuki represents the class identity of lower class people and those people who were engaged in prostitution irrespective of their gender. But since the time developed, Japan and Japanese culture and the Japanese people have accepted No and Kabuki equally, and now these two theatrical forms are very much well practiced, well appreciated by the Japanese people. And these two are very much representative theatrical forms of Japan. And if we see the development of No and Kabuki theatre, we can find the cultural history of Japan, because these two theatrical forms are existing since medieval period to the modern Japan, and it holds the whole history of development. We can also understand that these two theatrical forms are very much intertextual and it involves different kinds of art practices. One side, these two forms reflects the different classes of Japanese society and different religious, ritualistic practices of the Japanese society. These forms includes dance, speech, music, everything. So these are very composite artistic forms, and through these forms we can, one side we can read the cultural history of Japan from medieval to modern, as I said earlier, and another side we can read different artistic forms of Japan which have been practiced since medieval era. So we can understand that these two forms are not only important for the Japanese culture but also important for the Pan-Asian culture. And if we would like to know the Asian aesthetics and Asian theatrical forms and Asian theory of theatre, we have to study very sincerely such kind of forms like No and Kabuki. Thank you.